Argentina faces this Thursday the second general strike against the government's law of bases and the neoliberal measures taken by the administration of Javier Milei. In Palestine, intense Israeli attacks on East Rafah have left dozens of people killed. And as part of his trip to Russia, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel met with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in a bilateral meeting in Moscow. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. Argentina is experiencing on Thursday the second general strike against the so-called law of bases and the neoliberal measures taken by the government of Javier Milei. The main trade union confederations of the country, headed by the General Confederation of Labor, issued a document announcing the dismantling of the state and lack of social protection, affirming that the strike is in defense of democracy, labor rights, and a living wage. The unions are protesting against Milei's policies and the structural reforms, including in the so-called law of bases, which proposes the delegation of legislative powers to the executive, the privatization of companies, a special investment regime, and the labor reform that attacks the workers' rights. And also in this context, voices continue to condemn the decision of the Argentine government to remove teleSUR from open digital television. The journalist Horacio Embón called to say no to the censorship against the multimedia platform.
Hello, my name is Horacio Embón, a journalist, and this message is to say no to censorship, no to lifting teleSUR from open digital television, freedom. Is it understood? No to censorship, yes to freedom, and teleSUR, yes to the open digital television screen. Is that understood?
Likewise, writer and teacher Hernán Bacar Narvaja said that democratic governments are not built by silencing public media.
A government that bets on the censorship of public media is not a democratic government. Javier Milei closed the lamp, silenced public media, and now wants to eliminate teleSUR from open digital television. Let's defend plurality of voices. Let's defend democracy, not to the exclusion of teleSUR from open digital television.
In other news, AstraZeneca withdrew its COVID-19 vaccine after acknowledging in court documents it can cause a rare side effect. The Venezuelan government had already denounced this, refusing to receive the vaccine back in 2021. The fact could pave the way for a multi-million-pound legal payout. The pharmaceutical giant is being sued in a class action over claims that its vaccine, developed with the University of Oxford, caused death and serious injury in dozens of cases. TTS stands for thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome and causes people to have blood clots and a low blood platelet count. In Venezuela, Sucre municipality citizens rallied in support of candidate and President Nicolás Maduro. Vice President of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, led a massive mobilization in support of the re-election of the Venezuelan president. Social movement took part in this rally in support of the candidate who, in their opinion, represents the choice of the Venezuelan people against the candidate who represents the interests of the U.S. government. Demonstrators also rejected the imposition of the U.S. unilateral coercive measures against the country.
We have come to visit you, to see your faces, to greet you, to hug you with love, with respect, with admiration to a people that never surrenders, never, ever. The liberator came to Trujillo state when history was at its worst, and here his morale soared. Father Bolívar signed in Trujillo state the regularization of the war and the armistice document written by Antonio José de Sucre. The name of your municipality. But here Bolívar came with his known values to mountains that he knew like no one else. Here, in this state, the liberating army was recognized for the first time by the Spanish invaders.
In Mexico, almost 20,000 public offices will be renewed all over the country in the next general elections on June 2nd. More than 98 million Mexicans will go to the polls on June 2nd to renew the presidency of the Republic, the Senate, the Chamber of Deputies, and the governorships of Chiapas, Guanajuato, Jalisco, Morelos, Puebla, Tabasco, Veracruz, Yucatan, and Mexico City. The candidates for the presidency are Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo for the Let's Keep Making History coalition, Berta Chotils Galvez Ruiz for Strength and Heart for Mexico coalition, and Jorge Alvarez Maínez for the Citizens Movement National Political Party. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador called on citizens to exercise their right to vote on June 2nd.
Sunday, June the 2nd, we have to vote. Yes, we have to vote here. We all have to vote. It is voluntary, but it is very important to participate.
In this context, the Mexican president preferred not to comment on Argentina due to differences with its government.
I don't want to comment on that because we have known differences with the government of Argentina. And I don't want to quarrel about it. Once he referred to me and I answered him. And that's where we left off. And it will be up to the Argentinians as it is up to the Mexicans to judge their governments.
Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Wednesday, the Brazilian government reported that the death toll from the storms that have affected the state of Rio Grande do Sul since the end of April rose to over 100 people. Authorities also reported that some 128 people are missing and 372 are injured. The government added that more than 230,000 people have been displaced from their homes, of which 63,700 are in shelters and 163,000 in family or friend homes. So far, the state has 417 out of 497 municipalities with storm-related issues. In Honduras, the Secretariat of Risk Management and National Contingencies declared on Tuesday a red alert due to high atmospheric pollution in Tegucigalpa, the capital of the country. The authorities reported that there is poor air quality due to a dense layer of smoke that affects the health of the capital's population. The situation is caused by the burning of land for agricultural purposes in the region, some forest fires, and pollution from vehicle emissions. The institution declared a green alert for the rest of the country for an indefinite period to monitor the phenomenon and protect people's health. Meanwhile, a strong heat wave hits El Salvador. Weather authorities recorded temperatures of up to 40 degrees Celsius, the highest so far in the year. Authorities of the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources reported that high temperatures have been maintained since April, representing an unprecedented record of over 41 degrees Celsius during the next few days, especially in the afternoon and the evening. And more than 700 people have been evacuated in Uruguay as a result of heavy rains and floods. According to the country's national emergency system, the rains and floods have blocked roads and affected the water supply water and power supply in several regions of the South American nation. On the other hand, the Meteorological Institute issued an alert on the rains and storms that are expected in the next few days. Now we move on to other topics. In Palestine, intense Israeli attacks on East Rafah have left dozens of people killed and thousands displaced. After the latest escalation in attacks launched by Israeli aircraft, thousands of Palestinians have been forced to take dangerous evacuation routes to central Gaza. More than 80,000 people have been displaced from Rafah alone in recent days, according to UN Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Simultaneously, Israeli forces besieged the city of Gaza, where they attacked at least 10 homes in the Zaytun neighborhood, killing and wounding dozens, as reported by Rafah news agency. Since the beginning of the genocidal aggression in Gaza, Israel has killed 34,904 people, most of them women and children. And we stay in Palestine as more than 1.4 million people are currently displaced in Rafah, southern Gaza, as Israeli forces continue their genocidal aggression against the coastal enclave. Many in Rafah have been displaced several times during the 7-month war and are now heading back north after Israeli forces called for the evacuation of the eastern part of the city, home to tens of thousands of people. Life for displaced Palestinians has completely changed, with the streets empty and markets destroyed. In addition, many Gaza residents are currently homeless.
The situation is very hard. All the schools have been evacuated. Everything has been destroyed. In Al-Nefma, in Al-Auda, there was a complete evacuation. There is no sign of any life at all there. Humanity is doomed. There is nothing there. No markets, no life, no food or water. People don't know where to go anymore. The Israeli army threatened Rafah after they have finished their operation. They destroyed Countdownies. They want to take us back to destruction, back to the Stone Ages. There is no more infrastructure, no water, no electricity. As people, our rights have been violated in every aspect. In everything, our rights have been violated.
The African Union condemned Israel's military operations in the border town of Rafah, south of the Gaza Strip. In a statement, the multilateral bloc strongly rejected the offensive by Israeli troops, which resulted in the blockade of humanitarian aid. The statement expressed concern over the thousands of deaths and the systematic destruction of the quality of life of the Palestinians due to the aggression of Tel Aviv. The organization urged the international community to coordinate collective action to stop Israel's advance in the only passage allowed for humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, in the United States, police forces detained students during a pro-Palestinian demonstration and dismantled the encampment at George Washington University. Approximately 33 students were arrested during pro-Palestinian protests. This occurred hours after demonstrators marched to the home of the president of George Washington University to ratify the rejection of the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people. It is important to note that tensions have increased in the clashes with the students, which has generated a broad rejection in the student community. In the same context, students in Belgium also held demonstrations in support of the Palestinian people and against the Israeli genocide against Gaza. Demonstrators demand to the university authorities to break ties with Israel for maintaining its genocidal actions against the Palestinian people. During the day, students have taken over several areas of the university with the aim of having their demands heard. In this context, mobilized students reiterated their rejection of the recent attacks by Israel. It should be noted that these mobilizations have been reported all over Europe and in other areas of the world.
We therefore have three main demands. The first is an end to all links and collaboration between the ULB and Israel. The second is a transparent list of all these links, because we are not sure that we are aware of all the links there are, so that we can have a critical opinion and be able to give our verdict on them. Thirdly, we call on the cancellation of the visit of the former Israeli ambassador to our campus, who has been invited by the rector.
We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In the framework of his trip to Russia, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel met with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in a bilateral meeting in Moscow. The Russian president thanked the Cuban president for his presence at the military parade on the occasion of the 79th anniversary of the victory of the Great Patriotic War of 1941-1945 and welcomed Cuba's participation as an observer in the Supreme Eurasian Economic Council, as he emphasized that Moscow rejects U.S. attempts to curb Cuba's development through sanctions. In turn, Díaz-Canel referred to NATO's rapprochement to the Russian borders and the geopolitical manipulation that is currently being carried out by the U.S. In this context, the Russian president thanked the presence of current and historical allies to his nation, such as Cuba.
We remember the contribution to the fight against Nazism by the allies of the anti-Hitler coalition, participants in the convoys of the Lend-Lease program, which, by the way, included Cuba. We are glad to see the president of this country, Mr. Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermudez, on this solemn day with all of us. In the presence of the President of Laos, Thongloun Sisoulith, we welcome the people of the countries where on-the-ground members of the National Liberation Movement were active during the Second World War. Their struggle became the prologue to the emergence of independent sovereign states in Asia, which today play a growing role in the global economy and world affairs.
And we stay in Russia as the government accused the European Union of inciting terrorism after the bloc backed Ukraine's alleged right to attack the Crimean Bridge. The spokeswoman for the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, described as unacceptable the statement of the European bloc and said that it not only demonstrated the bloc's support for the Kiev regime, but incites Ukraine to maintain its attack against Russia. Zakharova stressed that the European Union openly ignores its own international obligations and becomes an accomplice of Ukraine's terrorist activities. She also noted that the European Union has admitted that there was a quick solution to the conflict, but that they don't do anything to put an end to Kiev's hostilities. The president of China, Xi Jinping, and his Serbian counterpart, Aleksandar Vučić, signed on Wednesday a joint statement on building a China-Serbia community of shared future. Both countries agreed to deepen their bilateral relations and enhance the comprehensive strategic partnership between China and Serbia. The leaders also signed a series of cooperation documents in the areas of construction, ecological development, digital economy, e-commerce, among others. In this regard, the Chinese President Xi Jinping assured that the objectives of the agreement are to realize the aspiration of the two peoples for a better life in the social and economic spheres.
As a Serbian proverb says, mountains do not meet, but people always do. Similarly, we Chinese say, distance cannot divide true friends who are thousands of miles apart. Mr. President has warmly invited me many times to visit friendly Serbia. And I'm here today, as promised. Good friends should meet and communicate more often. During this visit, we will sign a joint statement on deepening and upgrading the China-Serbia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership and building a China-Serbia community with a shared future in the new era, so as to open a new historic chapter in bilateral relations, standing at a new historical starting point. A brighter future for China-Serbia relations is unfolding.
On Wednesday, Cuba's 31st edition of the Artistic Youth Festival came to a close after 7 days of concerts, exhibitions, and cultural expressions from the participating countries. The closing of the Romerías de Mayo took place with the planting of a new tree of friendship in the city of Holguín. The multicultural event concluded with a closing show where delegates from the 10 nations bid farewell to the edition and called for the next one. Shouts for peace in support of the Palestinian people, book presentations, and more than 20 parallel events were held during the 31st edition of the Artistic Youth Festival. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.